Colin is the EVP of Global Marketing at Salesforce, where he leads a 600-person global marketing team responsible for brand, events, campaigns, advertising, content, you name it. And in addition to his many award-winning accolades, Colin and his team are responsible for launching Salesforce Plus, a streaming service that includes live experiences, original series, podcasts, and other programming. As you all know, I love hearing about people's non-traditional journeys into marketing, and Colin's is about as non-traditional as it gets. This morning, he spoke on the keynote stage about how he went from a Red Bull race car driver to an EVP of marketing at Salesforce and the driving force behind Salesforce Plus.
First of all, I've become a big F1 fan.
Oh, good.
No,
Drive to Survive?
Drive
or
to
before?
Survive.
Okay.
It was the gateway drug, and got really obsessed with the sport, and obviously started now following. And so when I heard your journey of being in a Red Bull racing driver, first of all, huge Red Bull fan personally, was really excited to hear about it. So I was curious. We did talk about it earlier, but what was it about that experience that helped shape you as a marketer? How did it?
Yeah, a couple things. I think motorsport's a very expensive sport. So drivers, as much as you see them on TV driving race cars, it's a small fraction of their lives. You only get to drive, in Formula 1 case, 23 races a year, but you've got half the year you're not driving, let's say. And so I spent a lot of time raising personal sponsorship because it's a very expensive sport. So a lot of time in front of CMOs and things like that. And then, you see a lot of former professional athletes in marketing. Because they're trained professional speakers generally, and they really have a high attention to detail, high resilience, I might add as well, and they're just well-rounded professionals in general. And so I learned a lot in my Red Bull experience. It has translated really nicely into marketing, and 15 years later in a marketing career, so it's worked out pretty well.
Well, I credit Salesforce Plus as one of the first movers in modern owned media. So you have a vantage point 2.5 years into scaling a strategy that most of us are just starting out with. What are some of the things that you're learning so far?
Yeah, a couple things. We've had a really awesome run with Salesforce Plus, and we're really thrilled with the response we've seen. And because, when we started it wasn't owned media wasn't really a term that was being discussed. But we were faced during the pandemic with an opportunity to do something new and exciting, and we took that, took a risk, and we're really thrilled with the results. We've learned definitely some lessons along the way, for sure. But we've learned the importance of building an audience, and how important it is to really nurture that audience along the way. And that's not just nurture journeys, as marketers typically go, but building valuable content for them, helping them along the way, teaching them something. And that's been really important for us along the way. Second part is really finding consumer world analogies in which to inspire us. And so thinking about, of course, what Peloton has done, what Netflix has done, what YouTube has done, and really finding our own little niche in terms of what that looks like in the enterprise marketing space. And then third, building content that's doing what it needs to do and learning from it, failing fast. And we've cut more episodes than we've produced, and that's really important because not everything's going to be a hit, and learn from it quickly and move on.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that's one of the hardest things for marketers, right? You want to experiment, but you also have to drive results pretty quickly.
Right.
So,
and I think a big part of it has been tying it for us at Salesforce, which is an events focused company, tying it to events. I mean, for us, has been like you're doing here. It's been a no-brainer, because it's really important to take really what we're doing at a physical event and scale it to such a broad audience. We had 154 countries watch the last stream for us, more than 250,000 people. So we're just thrilled with the response, and Salesforce Plus platform has been really valuable in helping us scale to a broader audience and really connect with new people.
That's awesome. I want to rewind to something you said earlier about the nurturing journey and making sure that you're teaching along the way. And I think the idea of providing value, something that we all hear in B2B, but it's kind of tough to act out, and it can feel really abstract. So how did you go about figuring out that journey, what it looks like to actually nurture your customers?
It's one of the flaws of enterprise software is there's a lot of org charts that get shipped in content. So we have this ABH, always be helping, is the sort of methodology we have with our content. And for us, it's all about making sure that whatever you're producing, whether it be original series or a content session at an event or a keynote, what is the audience actually gleaning from it? What are you guiding them? What are you helping educate around? What are you showing them and offering them? And for me, that's the most important part, helping. You're not building content for you, you're building it for them. And I think it seems obvious saying that, doesn't it? But so many people lose sight of that. It's like, we just launched this new product. We got to spend 30 minutes talking about that. Nobody cares. If it doesn't help their problems, it doesn't help them. And so always be helping as the framework we've always followed, and that seems to be working pretty well for us.
If I can go off script for a second, there's a
Let's
script
do it.
before I'm doing my own thing. I hope it's okay. I'm only going a little rogue, but I'm curious, Colin.
for
Like,
it.
how do you say like provide value? I'm curious. I think value can be like edutainment, which is there's like
Of
the
course.
tactical value, right? It's like for the marketing professional, and then there's just the pure entertainment value. So I'm curious. I'm sure it kind of swings from show to show, but how
Yeah.
do you think about balancing educational content and value with entertainment content and value?
I think I don't look at there to be a delineation between the two. You wanna first start out with what's the audience looking for, and
Sure.
you want to start with the research, what matters, and then if there's a fun and energetic or high production way to do that,
Right.
that's fantastic. So we were, one example is we wanted to create content that really shined a light on climate change and really our offerings to help people understand their carbon footprint. And it would have been easy to do a bunch of demos of our net zero cloud and do something interesting. But what we did was we partnered with Fortune to follow these what we call ecopreneurs around the world and show how they're using the technology rather than just talk about it.
Right.
And so just a great example of like providing something of value. There's a little bit of a message in there for Salesforce. Of course, we're doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
But really it just allows us the opportunity to connect with the viewership in a much deeper way because you're providing value.
Yeah. Well, reminds me, was it the Netflix show Queen's Gambit? It's like the best way to sell chessboards isn't to show me how to play chess. It's
Yes.
to tell a great story about
Yeah.
chess.
And it was
like
a great story,
millions
yeah.
of
Yeah,
chessboards were sold in like that year that it came out.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, and from now in your keynote, you are creating your own shows in-house, potentially partnering for Salesforce Plus, right?
Yeah, of
Partnering
course.
with shows, using the platform to distribute your event content. What's next on your horizon? Yeah, I like the smile that came across your face.
yeah.
There's a big idea in there.
We're always thinking. A couple things. We want to expand to the mobile space much better. So the platform is good on mobile now, but we want it to be much better. The world has moved to mobile first, and we want to be really immersive in that sense. We've done a lot with more hands-on workshops, so we're allowing hands-on learning on our platform now, which is a lot of fun. So really teaching people technology in new and exciting ways, and really building sort of the upskilling and reskilling environment, if you will. So that's really exciting. And then we're doing a lot more with virtual events and really hosting events like this in a purely virtual setting, just to really, it reduces the cost of expensive events in that
For
sense,
sure.
but it also allows us to reach a bigger audience, which is important. And then, of course, there's always some little tricks up our sleeve. It's got some content partnerships we're looking at. But, I think what you've seen with certain companies out there, Masterclass has done a great job. There's still plenty of room to grow and continue to find new ways to do things.
Yeah.
Very cool.
One of the things I wanted to ask when we were talking earlier, we were talking that this is obviously massively impactful on the Salesforce brand and really important, but also fundamentally a revenue driver. This is Salesforce Plus generates pipeline for the business.
It does, absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit of just the importance of that data, the first party data, and how you guys sort of think about that approach?
For the first time, Anthony, we've always talked about this 95-5 rule that gets thrown out from the Ehrenberg Bass Institute. And for the first time in Salesforce, and I've been a champion of that for several years now, but with Salesforce Plus, we finally have a way of identifying that with first-party data and really understanding behaviors and patterns and subscribers. And these aren't subscribers that we're putting into an SDR queue that for them to dial down. They're for us to continue to provide value for them and give them on-ramps into purchasing conversations, but it's not our initial intent. And so we do track, of course, as they further down the funnel, and we see what the behavior is. And what we see is when we provide, they will spend a lot of time with us, and when they're ready, they'll engage with us, and we think that's really important. And we've done hundreds of millions of dollars of pipeline from the platform. And what started out as marketing's little side project has turned into a huge part of our marketing motion, which we're pretty excited about.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I want to rewind really quickly to when you mentioned you cut more episodes than you actually
Yeah.
publish. Very open-ended question, but how do you go about deciding what success looks like even after you've filmed the episodes?
Yeah, you're looking at depths of viewership. You're looking at obviously volume of viewership. You're looking at how much is it aligned with our trajectory and our goals as a company. Of course, when you look at the last 4 years, we've seen a lot of change. We couldn't even spell AI a year ago, and here we are. And so you're just looking at sometimes great content is right for that moment, but you could be producing the best original series or piece of content. But if the world's moved on, there's no reason to hold on to that. And we talked earlier today at the event with doing more with less. That's not a good outcome for marketers. They're all strapped pretty tight, right? So how do we shed some of the dead weight that's not carrying the relevance that we need, the context we need, and focus our efforts on things that might be more of the moment? And you've got to be able to say and move on from things. And it's hard. We all get, as marketers, we all get like emotionally attached to the content we're producing, but if your audience is emotionally attached, then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Audience first. Any other questions for you
Yeah.
two? Because I have another one.
Yeah, I actually do. I have a bunch of questions. We shared an elevator ride, but it didn't,
We did.
It didn't feel appropriate to
Fast
ask
friends,
this question.
yes.
But it's a softball. But I'm curious, kind of all the different shows. Has there been one that you are like happily surprised did well? Like, you know, one that just did better than even you'd hoped, or you know, like a surprise, like I don't know, should we do a show on climate change? You're like, oh, we definitely should do more on.
Yeah. You know, I think there's been a lot of the content's been broadly awarded, and so we're really proud of things like Ecopreneurs and the Pivot podcast with Fox Media Network and stuff like that. There's a lot of in the lights, but what I'm really proud of is the practitioner-heavy, deep content with hands-on training that allows people to build their careers. I mean, we've seen great examples of people learning whatever may be technology on our platform and going on to get promoted or get that next big job. And for me, there's nothing more fulfilling than that. When you see a full ecosystem educating themselves, building their careers, taking companies to new heights, bringing more value to their organizations, there's nothing better than that for me.
So I know you mentioned where Salesforce Plus is headed next, and I'd love to dig in a bit onto how you decided to move forward with the hands-on workshops. How did you determine which content you want to lean into over the next couple of years?
We ask a lot of questions of our audience. The audience will always have the answers.
Yeah.
And what they told us is, hey, you've built a lot of great content at the top level, like educating, bring us into the funnel, they don't think of it in that sense, but bring us into the conversation. But now I want to get interested in the technology. And so we have a lot of new technology with AI and this explosion of data. We needed to show people how to use it. And for us, hands-on training was an easy out. It was technically challenged, but an easy solve for us. And so we spent a lot of time there. And with artificial intelligence, it's just a whole new world. And so we want to be able to show people the use cases, how to think about the technology along the way.
One question for you, Colin, too. For if somebody's watching from home right now, they're working on a content program, they're inspired by the work that you all have done. What's your just advice to the marketing community that wants to kind of follow in your footsteps? Of course, you know, earlier stages, you know, along the way. Just curious, kind of how you would kind of encourage them to get started.
Well, of course, it's a world-class team at Salesforce that has built the platform, and we're really excited to see what we've built together. You know, a couple things. Number one is have a reason for being. Don't just create an owned media strategy because we sat up here and talked about it. It's got to fulfill a need for you and your business. And so that's number one. Have the audience research. Make sure that when you do start creating content or building an owned media strategy, that it's done not with your org chart in mind, but with the audience in mind. And then third, creating something from scratch, which is what you were doing and many of us are thinking about doing, is a really hard go. And so for Salesforce, we attached it to an events model because that was underway and very successful at Salesforce. That might not be true at your company. And so what does that mean for your organization, whether it be events or some other strength of your company? Attaching content and thought leadership from your organization into that is the fastest path to success, in my opinion. So start there.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Colin.
thanks for having me.
I know I
Appreciate
learned a
it.
lot. It's great to chat with you.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much,
Appreciate it.
Colin.
Thank you.